I want to start in Jacksonville, though. That's where Florida and Georgia are playing. This game, I rarely miss. I rarely miss this one. I wasn't there last year for obvious reasons because it wasn't worth going on the road because we couldn't really do anything. But before that, I've been at this game the last several years. So we're going to break that streak. Georgia, a 14-point favorite at Caesars right now. It's the Saturday 3:30 game Eastern Time on CBS. Let me ask you a question. You know what the perception is right now. Everybody who's watched Georgia, everybody who's watched Florida, especially as of late, you know what the perception is. So as we watch this game of college football that we all love more and more, how many times have you seen perception just get thrown into a blender? I mean, it's so rarely that easy to figure out. And so I know a lot of people are looking at this game and you're saying, well, based on what LSU did on the ground, Georgia should easily run for 250, right? And also, Florida, based on what we've seen this year and what we've seen from Georgia defensively, Florida should not be able to sustain enough drives and enough offense to be able to hang in this game, right? And so we say all that, and that equals 30-10 in the fourth quarter. And I just ask you to open this show and to open this preview. Is it going to be that easy? Sometimes it works out that way. The better teams, the Alabamas of the world, over the last several years, Alabama's gone into a lot of games where you thought it was predictable, and it ended up playing out exactly how you would have predicted. But there's also sometimes some volatility in these games. Now, I know that if you're looking at Florida right now and you're trying to find a reason why perception will not be reality Saturday, there's this anecdotal argument that I think you could make, okay? And I don't know that you should feel that bad about saying what I'm about to say. If I were trying to put together a case where Florida wins this game, or at least they're right there in the fourth quarter, I would say, last year, who did Florida play their worst game against? The answer would be LSU, just like this year. And then I would ask, who did Florida play their best game against? And my answer would be Alabama. Even though they lost the game, they played the eventual national champ, one of the best teams I've ever seen, to within one score in the SEC title game. And then the third question I would ask is, did the Bama game come before or after that LSU game? And the answer is, Florida's best game came after their worst game. Stands to reason, if we're to make of that something related to this year, that maybe we just saw Florida play their worst game against LSU. Maybe their best game is yet to come. There is no data behind that. That is purely circumstantial. It's purely just trying to wish it into existence. Otherwise, you could very well be looking at 30-10 in the fourth quarter. So grabbing points early, I think, will be so huge for Florida here. Everything about Georgia, everything you've seen from them this year, starting with the Clemson game and running right up to present day, it's all been predicated on something. And it's not just winning, it's how they've been winning. It's predicated on controlling the game the entire time. They haven't had JT Daniels. Why hasn't it mattered? Because no one has forced them to come from behind. It's just not a spot Georgia's been put in. That's not by accident. It's because they're really good. It's because they're the best team in the country. We got JP poll later tonight. Little spoiler alert. That team in red and black still number one. So it's not coincidence that they've grabbed these leads, but it's also not impossible that you could maybe flip the script on them. If Florida's got a shot in this game, certainly they have to grab points early. Number one, they need to do it for the obvious reason, to put Georgia in unfamiliar territory. I'm also halfway a believer they need to do it to convince themselves they got a shot here. Because I think one of the big hidden questions, well, it's not hidden, it's right out in front of the open. One of the big questions here is what kind of Florida team is even showing up? Where is that locker room mentally? It's been a lot of kind of yapping back and forth down there, but not between the two teams. It's kind of been between the coaching staff and the players about what happened in the LSU game. It's kind of weird. You don't normally see that so public and so front-facing. So I don't know where Florida is, but I'm telling you, you can forget all that if you lead Georgia 10-0. That sounds so crazy to even say because we haven't really seen it this year. But everything about Georgia has been predicated so far on playing with a lead. Now, the other thing that Florida's got to have, and I know this sounds very steep, but this is just the reality of what you're going to need in order to try and pull off an upset, is you've got to not only have Anthony Richardson taking a vast majority of the snaps, and I believe that will happen, quarterback there for Florida, but I also believe, this is where it gets steep, he's got to play relatively mistake-free football against the best defense in the country with very limited experience. So could it happen? Sure, crazier things have happened. Is that something that you want to bank on happening? I don't necessarily want to do that. But like I said, crazier things have happened. Now, what I envision, if Florida grabs an early lead, if Florida's offense is rolling a little bit more than maybe anticipated, if you start applying the old metaphorical water pressure against the Georgia Dam and maybe, oh, look, there are a couple of cracks that we didn't know existed, it's probably going to come via the RPO game and the added strain that mobility at quarterback and the kind of athlete at quarterback that Richardson gives Florida can do to you. And then the other thing, I think it seems like common sense, but you got to go right back to the well, don't you? Last year, it was a nightmare for Georgia defensively trying to cover running backs in the passing game. Well, I mean, I'm sure they've worked on it, but my goodness, don't you have to find out how much they've worked on it? So if Florida grabs an early lead, that's probably the way it looks. Regardless, though, now switching to Georgia, one of the big talking points coming in here for both teams is which quarterbacks are going to play, how many snaps are each quarterback going to play. I don't really care particularly who starts at quarterback for Georgia, and I don't particularly care how the snaps are divvied up. I will tell you my main question, regardless of who's taking the snaps for Georgia, is how much will be asked of the quarterback position in this game. Because I'll tell you two things. We're talking about teams finding out something early. Two things that Kirby Smart and Todd Monken are going to want to find out and will find out really early. Number one, does Florida have the chest, if you will, to stand in there and stop the run, or just limit it? Not stop the run, but limit it. And secondly, Florida is a very, very poor tackling team in space. I was reading some of Jake Rowe's stuff today over on Dogs 24/7. He's right about this. Florida, not the best team in preventing yards after catch. And so I want you to picture something for me. Picture you're watching this game, and Georgia is averaging over 6 yards per carry, getting up into that LSU running territory against Florida. Well, if they're doing that, all the rest of this stuff's irrelevant. We could make this preview video 30 seconds long. Or if Georgia is completing essentially glorified runs, just extensions of the run game, these short screens and slants and whatnot, and then they're ripping off chunks after the catch, then it's also irrelevant. I know people picture in their mind, whichever quarterback we put in there, he's going to have to make some threaded needle throws over the middle, going to have to hit that 25-yard out from the far hash. No, in all likelihood, they're not going to have to if those things are trending in the right direction for Georgia. To me, to go back to a point I just made before we look at what the model thinks on this game, to be clear, the biggest unknown, the biggest thing that's sort of like that distant sound, that canary in the coal mine that I have no clue what to expect from, is the different kind of pressure that we know a Dan Mullen offense can put on a defense. And then if any leaks are exposed, what are they? Translation, even if Georgia may win the game, maybe it's just closer than you think it is, do we come out of this game Saturday from Jacksonville and saying either, wow, Florida pulled the outright upset, in which case the headlines take care of themselves, or wow, Georgia won 30-24, but boy, did you see this, and this? I didn't expect that. That Georgia defense in this spot and that spot, that's something to keep tucked away down the road if they play Alabama or if they're in the playoff against fill in the blank. That's the biggest unknown. And like I said, the other unknown is what kind of Florida team do we even get show up? Let's take a look at what the model thinks here. You're looking at the rivalry history there. Chunks, 3, 3, 3. Well, Florida, hey, they got a streak. It's not a streak until you win multiple, so they don't quite have a streak yet. But let's take a look at what the model thinks. So the Las Vegas number right now is Georgia minus 14. My feel is that that's going to go north of 14. So if you want to bet Georgia, I'd probably do it right now. Our model is a little bit north of 14. It's got Georgia minus 15.5. Now here's what I came back to. What I came back to is I love Georgia to win the game. Because I'm more confident in Georgia to win the game, I actually think the style of play they're going to be able to incorporate is one that shaves down a lot of possession time, shaves down a lot of game time in general, and ends up playing out in a manner where they are running the ball effectively enough, where they don't have to stretch the field a whole lot and take a whole lot of chances in the passing game. And as a result, we look at a final score that appears to be close when you apply traditional standards of football, but in reality is not nearly as close as the final score indicates. So at that 2-touchdown mark, I am actually slightly leaned over towards taking Florida and the points. However, I feel supremely confident in taking Georgia to win the game. And what I'm telling you is I'm not taking Florida plus the points and also thinking in the back of my mind, well, I might as well put a little on the money line. That's not where my head's at on that one. So I like Georgia to win, slightly lean Florida to cover, and am very interested, regardless of the outcome, to see if we're saying anything different about Georgia on the other side. than we are right now.